Hello again, everybody. It's round three of tonight's fishing reports. I'm really excited. We're going to take it down to Florida, actually East Coast Central Florida, with Captain Jamie. Let's pull him in. Let's just start rolling. Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
You are having an amazing start to your year. I'm just going to plug this really quick since we just went right into pulling you in. So you started your franchise. You have your grand opening. Life situations are amazing. I know for you this year already. So I'm really excited to have this fishing report for you. I'm psyched for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's go into the 2-minute bite, where we just kind of do a roundup of what's going on really quick, and then we'll go into questions and get a little deeper into the fishing report.
All right. So right now, like, we're still in our winter season, and I know it's hard to believe it's Florida, but we do have a winter season. The sheep's head are like feeding like crazy. They're spawning. It's really hard to focus on anything else because it's a pretty much guaranteed bite. You're gonna get them almost every trip. They're great to eat. We've been getting some studs, like, a good sheep's head's like a 4 or 5 pounder. We've been getting 7, 8 pounders on a regular basis and filling up the box. We like to use a fiddler crab or a sand flea for bait is like typically what you want, and they've been so hard to come by this year. Colder weather pushes the fiddler crabs down into the earth, into their little holes, so they don't come out. It's hard for the harvesters to catch them for us. And then we had a really bad, I may have mentioned it in the last report, but we had a really bad king tide back in this past spring.
Yeah.
And it basically a year ago, and it pushed all the sand fleas over the dunes. The king tide's like extremely high tide on a full moon. It pushed them all over the dunes, and then they didn't make it back out. So unfortunately, on the beach, the commercial guys that catch them with the rakes, they just can't find them, and the ones they do find are like smaller than half of a penny. And so the two main go-to baits, we haven't been able to get them, but a solid third choice is a shrimp. And we use a shrimp with a artificial, we call it a Fish Bites. It's a brand. It's a synthetic artificial bait, and that and the shrimp combined has really been doing a trick this year. I actually seen a YouTube video, and I haven't tried it yet. Somebody using earthworms.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the sheep's head are just starving, but it seemed to work tremendously. I have not given it a shot yet, but I'm going to try it just to see if it's true or not.
Right.
Other than that, we're still catching black drum. I know up north on Chesapeake, people do target bluefish. For us down here, they're kind of a nuisance because they steal all of our bait and bite our hooks off when we're trying to catch our target species. But there's an abundance of bluefish in the area right now. Most of them are small, like a 12, 14-inch range, but there are some bigger ones. I mean, I've caught a few, and not this year, but in years past, that were pushing 40 inches. So that's a pretty big bluefish.
That's
yeah. And then Spanish mackerel are mixed in with these bluefish, which, if you can get through the bluefish to the Spanish mackerel, they're excellent eating fish. So right now, again, sheep's head's our main target.
Right on. Yeah, I love a sheep's head yank. I caught my citation sheep's head on the eastern shore, and that was a pretty fun fight.
You caught one on the Chesapeake Bay on the eastern shore?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And then Spanish mackerel is always a fun fight for sure. But let's go into some of the others that you mentioned. We still have time in our 2-minute bite here. How about the triple tail that you mentioned to me before we started the show?
Yep. So triple tail, they're here year round. It seems to be that like November to about March that I see I see them more predominantly than I do other times of the year. Um, they like structure, so they like buoys and they like anything floating. They're really easy to like just ride right by, and if you've never seen one before, it's kind of funny. They lay on their side, so instead of being like like this, they're laying flat. They
Huh.
almost, when I first started fishing for them years ago, somebody said look for a floating boot. So yeah, once you figure out what they look like, they're fairly, unless they've been targeted a lot or a lot of pressure on them, they're easy to catch. The go-to way to catch them really is a free line shrimp. No weight, no nothing. You flip a shrimp a few inches away, let it drift across their face, and then
Mhm.
usually you'll go up to it and kind of just grab it. You got to give them a second to eat it, and then just come tight on them. And I mean, they're extremely strong fighters for their size. And I mean, we catch some dang big ones, like 24 inches, 18 inches, but they're excellent eating. They're probably, my wife will tell you that it's her favorite fish to eat. Um, the challenge I have with them right now is we have artificial reefs where they have mooring buoys where the county puts out buoys for
Yeah.
people to tie up to the fish, the artificial reefs they put out there. Most of our buoys this past summer and fall got washed away by the hurricanes.
Yeah.
So they've been harder to find this year. But if you can find something floating like a pallet or a bucket, almost guaranteed, and this will be near shore, like, maybe within 2 to 3 miles offshore, that we'll find this debris, or there's a buoy or a channel marker for the inlets, and these fish will be hanging out there. Um, uh, uh, you know, some of these guys like to target them with fly fishing. I'm not that accurate, so I've not really tried it yet. But free line shrimp or just anything on the surface that you can toss to them works really well.
Yes. Um, so yes, thanks for reminding me. So we are done with our 2 minute bite. So we're going to go into more questions. But before we do, as always, we do question of the evening. And tonight's winner will receive a 6-inch Outlife Glitter 8-pack from BKD, one of our sponsors. Very graciously gives us these prizes to give away. So get your questions in because the show goes really fast and you want to get in your question for the prize tonight. So let's go into the fishing report a little deeper. So you mentioned cobia before the show as well. What's going on there?
Um, Cobia is about to start. You know, everybody fishes for them a little bit differently. Our fish migrate from the south all the way up to you guys. Actually, I believe they come up to the mouth of Chesapeake Bay.
Yep.
When they're passing by us headed north, they're 90% of the time on the surface. And these fish will be traveling with manta rays. These manta rays are huge, thousands of pounds, some of them. So the way we fish for them is we head south, typically out of our inlet, and we just start zigzagging anywhere from a few hundred yards off the beach to 2, 3, 4 miles out. And once the rays surface, these cobia will be with them. There'll also be free swimming cobia, schools of cobia, but 90% of the time we're looking for rays. We typically use a bucktail jig or some sort of bigger soft plastic. There's God, they're called hoggies, I believe is the brand name of them, and they're almost like a long eel. And
Okay.
we'll cast those. The trick is you got to cast the head of the ray swimming without snagging the ray and getting your bait to come right underneath of
Yeah.
that ray, and those fish will come out after it.
Yeah.
Problem is, if you hook the ray, you're
Oh.
gonna make them mad. You're never gonna reel them in,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's gonna dive down, and all the fish are gonna go down with him. So
Sure.
it's kind of hard to run a charter doing it because you have to be extremely accurate. And it's funny. I will tell all my customers when we're doing it, make sure you wear make sure you bring polarized sunglasses. You have to have polarized sunglasses. And then show up to the dock with no sunglasses or a pair of sunglasses. I'm like, are they polarized? They're like, I think so. I'm like, oh no. But the importance of polarized sunglasses in cobia fishing is like, can't express how important it is enough. But
Right.
anyway, we target these fish on the surface. And it's super exciting. It goes from like 0 to 100 real quick because we could be hunting for these rays for 2 hours sometimes, and then all of a sudden we see one. I get up on them. I can see anywhere from 1, 2, 10, 12 fish with this ray, And I'm like, all right, here we go. I'll have everybody with a rod, and I'll show them once or twice what I need them to do, and just have at it. And I could tell you a pretty funny story if I
Oh
had.
yeah, love the
Okay,
story. And then we'll go into questions because
sure.
we have about two right now, so we have time for a quick question or quick
Okay.
story.
Last year I took a gentleman, his wife, and his two daughters out, and there was a rocket launch, and where we're at, Cape Canaveral is maybe like 40 miles south of us, where they launched the
Beautiful.
rockets.
Yeah.
And so he explained to me that I believe it was his dad or his father-in-law had retired from NASA, and there was a rocket launch at 10:35, and he needed to catch a cobia to be holding it up as the rocket's going up. I'm like, well, you know how hard that's going to be, and I don't think I can time that. And his wife set her alarm for 15 minutes before the rocket. Right as I spotted a cobia, or I'm sorry, a ray with a bunch of cobia on it, her alarm went off. I
Oh,
said, "All right, give me the rod because we need to have accurate casts if you really want to catch this fish or one of these fish." We hooked the fish. We got it in the boat. I didn't even have time to unhook the fish, and the guy's holding it up, and behind his shoulder is the rocket going up. So
oh
he
my
sent
God.
that picture to his father-in-law or his dad. I cannot remember, but it was a once in a lifetime thing that will never happen again. So if anybody books me for a charter, I promise you, um, I cannot time it perfectly to be with a rocket launch.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that's a good promise to make. Well, let's go into the questions, and I also want to say something really quick because you mentioned polarized lenses. Our sponsor is Hook Optics,
Okay.
amazing sunglasses. We talk about them all the time. And if you want a good pair of polarized sunglasses to take on your fish of a lifetime trip with Captain Jamie, you can go to thefishingchannel.net, where we actually have Hook Optic glasses available for purchase. So, Rodney, hello again, Rodney. How do you like to cook your fish? Good question because you are catch and cook. Smoke, bake, or fry?
I mean, it really depends on what kind of fish it is.
True. Yeah.
I like to, if it's an oily fish like a mackerel or even like a mullet, which is a bait fish. We like to smoke them and make dip out of them. Cream cheese, mayonnaise, chives, onions, maybe some celery. Kind of, it's almost like a tuna dip, but you let it chill. You can mix some cheese in there with it and kind of eat it with crackers. But if it's a fish that I'm going to cook, blackened and cast iron is my favorite for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about lemon, thyme, and sage?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
There's another good way is just like garlic and butter and like
Yeah.
capers and stuff like that. Like, and yeah, I could go on. I like to cook. We don't need to get that. Have to be a whole nother show.
Well, yeah, maybe that's something else to consider putting on your shelf at your
Okay.
bait and tackle shop, right?
Yeah.
The Thrappas family recipe book. Uh, next question we have is from Carl Ward. How you doing, Carl? What size rod and reel setup for copia?
That's a good one. Typically my go-to all around is a 4,000 series with a 7 foot or 7'6". I like a medium heavy rod. I like that stiff rod. I can cast more accurately. I can, if I need to put some heat on a fish to change their direction, which way they're going. I will. I don't know. If you go with too light of a rod, you have too many, or I'm sorry, too light of a weight of a rod. It's too flimsy. You can't
Yeah.
really like control exactly where you're going to be casting. But the 4,000 series, I use a brand called Florida Fishing Products. They're made here in Florida. It's a great brand. The 4,000 series, I've caught some monster fish on it. However, if you want to ensure that you're going to get that fish in, a 6,000 series is probably really the way to go.
Oh, wow.
4,000 would be, you really want to enjoy that fight. 6,000 is, hey, I'm getting this fish in the boat, and we're not losing this fish. So,
That's good. Good information. So let's see if we have any other, I'll say we're caught up on our questions. So it gives us some room to talk about another fish. And I also want to talk about the opening of your tackle shop as well.
okay.
So let's go into, actually, I think we've covered all the fish. Sheep's head, triple tail, cobia. What else is biting out there that you want to discuss?
Again, going into the spring, we're going to be focused on cobia, and as we get a little bit farther into the spring, we'll start going offshore a little bit more, and the mahi will start showing up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, we can get offshore year round, but it's really hard to schedule an offshore trip in the wintertime. Again, we do have winter in Florida. What happens is you guys in the mid Atlantic and the Northeast, you get your cold fronts, they spin counterclockwise. When they go off the coast, they send a swell down along the East Coast in between the Bahamas and Florida. It's like a bowling alley. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens is it gets rough. And so, for example, if somebody calls me in December and wants to book a fishing charter offshore on January 14th, I can take all their information and put them in my book, but I can't guarantee. It may be 4 to 6 foot seas, 20-mile-an-hour winds. So
Wow.
winter in the wintertime offshore, mostly we target like wahoo. If we're going to go out there and troll, it's going to be wahoo. And then coming into the spring, we'll focus on the cobia, and as we get in the later spring, the mahi will start migrating north towards the Carolinas. So as you get more into the spring and then the summer, we get into a high pressure pattern, and it's calm. It's almost like Lake Atlantic. I mean, it could be like a lake. So we'll go out there, we'll look for weed lines, we'll troll, we'll look for debris, we'll troll. If not, we look for temperature breaks or we'll troll the edge of the Gulf Stream for them.
Great. We do have another question from Carl again. How do you target mahi?
So mahi, typically we look for weed lines. Um, the wind will blow in a certain direction for a couple days and then slack off, and that grass will clump up. It's called sargassum grass. Um, and it'll clump up in these huge lines that you can see it when you're out there. Trying to explain it. You can see like the wind lines on the water throughout the day and whatnot, but this grass will clump up in these wind lines and then they become weed lines. So you look for these big clumps of floating grass. The bait fish will get up underneath of them, and then you troll along both sides of the clumped up grass. It's kind of frustrating when it gets rough and the wind changes directions because that grass will break up. And then you're trolling. You'll still catch fish, but you'll get grass constantly on your baits,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to shake all the grass off, and it's a lot of work in a day when the grass breaks up. But when the grass is clumped up, almost not guaranteed, but pretty damn close, you're gonna, oh, excuse my language, you're gonna catch some mahi.
Yeah, great points. One thing I'd like to say before we go into our last question here that we have, you mentioned the hurricane, and I know from another correspondent that we have, our boy E, how difficult it was to really go back out there and reassess the lay of the land because it changed so much. So the fact that you are getting on some amazing fish amidst the hurricane and everything being shifted around speaks highly of your qualifications. So we definitely recommend everybody book a charter with you. And how do they do that?
You can obviously give us a call. My direct line is 386-366-3424. You can shoot us an email at yellow dog, but dog is DAWG, yellowdogfishing@gmail.com. Or you can go on our website, which is www.yellowdogdawgfishing@com, and you can go in there and just submit an inquiry, and we'll get back to you. And you can also look us up on our social feeds.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's go to our last question here before we choose question of the evening. Robert Figliosi, one of our sponsors, says, is it true that pink is a good color for cobia? If so, which size plastic would you use?
It depends on which plastic, but definitely pink is a great color. I like pink. I like chartreuse yellow, and I like a green. Some guys like purple. Uh, what I like to use is a pink bucktail with a white with the white tail with the white hair, and then an artificial eel.
Ah,
And one last trick I'll tell people is tip the hook with a piece of squid, Because if you're using straight all artificial, you'll get these fish that'll dart out. They've been getting beat up from the guys farther south than me. Let's say as far south as Miami, and then Fort Lauderdale, and then Fort Pierce, and then Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach. So by the time they get to me with these rays, they've done been casted at hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come out from under these rays and they'll nose your bait and they'll turn away. And
Ah.
so after having that happen years after years after years, you know, you can use synthetic. Gulp makes a synthetic smelling eel, and that's helped a little bit. But just a little tiny piece of squid, and I'll change it out after 10, 12 casts. But that fish will come up and nose that bait. He'll smell that squid and he'll eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That's a
but
really
but
great hot tip there.
I would say, as far as the soft plastic goes, at least a 5 inch. You need something 5 inches. You need something that's going to be swimming behind that bucktail. That's going to draw more attention to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we are at the end, and it's time for you to choose which question wins the prize.
I don't remember his name. It may have been Carl. The fellow who asked about what size setup to use for cobia.
Okay, let's see here. Oh, thank you. Yep, Carl Ward. Carl, congratulations. I know how to get a hold of you, so you will be receiving your prize in the mail shortly. Great question, Carl. Everyone, great questions. So one thing I want to talk about really quick before we end this segment, can you talk about the grand opening of your bait and tackle shop?
Sure. So we've actually been open since the end of May of last year. However, there was a bunch of work going on. My shop's in a county park. They were redoing the boat ramp and the walkways and things of that nature. So we kind of just did a soft opening for a few months, get it stocked up, kind of figure out the ebb and flow of the business. And now that the boat ramp's back open, we're coming in the spring. Our busy season in this area starts next week. We have the Daytona 500s coming into town.
Nice.
So we have tons of race fans. I have a lot of people involved in NASCAR, like everything from drivers to race teams to NASCAR officials, all come down and go fishing with us. So we just decided that it's a great time to do our grand opening, which is actually going to be on March 4th. I got a couple different sponsors going to be there. I got a boat company going to be there, Floyd Skiff, which is a flats boat, which is like a technical pulling skiff, super high quality. They're going to be there doing demos on their flats boats. I got a sunglass company called Bahio, which is a local polarized sunglass brand here in Florida. That they're going to be there. Florida Fishing Products, my real sponsor, they're going to be there. Got live music, free kids fishing tournament. Got some free hot dogs and hamburgers, raffles for charity and stuff like that. So it should be a pretty good event.
Yes, it's not just a grand opening. It sounds like it's a party.
Yeah. Well,
there's so much going on. It sounds like it's going to be a great, great time.
Again,
yeah.
Going into busy season, we have the Daytona 500, and then right behind that, we have Bike Week, which brings about 500,000 bikers to the area. When I scheduled it, I didn't happen to look at the Bike Week schedule. It's the first Saturday of Bike Week. So we'll probably have a lot of bikers attending as well.
Wow.
So it should be a pretty cool event.
It's going to be awesome. Well, blessings and great success to you on that grand opening. Also, I mentioned earlier about you started your magazine franchise. Would you like to discuss that briefly?
Sure. So it's actually the largest fishing publication in North America. It's called Coastal Angler Magazine. I have one here. I'll show you.
Nice.
It's a free magazine to the reader, and the way that it works is they segment it into different franchises to different regional areas. And the reason they do that is so it's relevant reading material to the reader in whatever particular region that it's in. And it's also advantageous to the advertisers. So let's say a bait and tackle shop like myself that's going to advertise in my local magazine, it's not going to be in, let's say, the Panhandle of Florida or the Carolinas advertising my bait and tackle shop. So it's the first few pages of the front of the magazine. The last few pages are national advertisers and national editorial. And then this inside of the magazine is local. So I bought the local edition to my area, obviously, so I could advertise my businesses, but also to get better connected with the fishing community, make a positive, impact. get some really high quality writers in there. So when people are reading it, they can learn, they can, be educated, they can understand what to use, what's biting, things of that nature.
Well, that sounds great. I mean, you have so many great things going for you. So again, much success to you, your wife, your family, and everything you got going on. I'm super excited for all you got going. So that is the end of our show. Any last words for us, Captain?
No, I mean, spring's right around the corner, so make sure you get get all your gear out, get everything freshly strung up, lubed up, all your ready to go, because I mean, we fish year round, but I know up there in the mid-Atlantic, Northeast, etc., like it's about to be prime time fishing, so
For sure.
get the dust off of everything, get ready to catch them up.
Right on. So on that note, everyone have a great evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to all three of our segments. If you have, I know Rodney and Carl have, so thank you so much. As always, everyone have a great night and fish on. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.